Welcome to part 3! Today we're taking a look at the feature-length movie that precedes the main game, Kingsglaive, Final Fantasy XV. Yes, that is seriously how they chose to name it. The film was meant to complement the main game, just as the game complements the movie, though the developers wanted them to be enjoyable without experiencing the other, like treat them as standalone products. Heh. We'll see about that. Hajime Tabata is of course the producer, just as he was with the main game, and Takashi Nozue serves as the movie's director. Takashi is known for his contributions in other Final Fantasy related media, such as 10 and 10-2, as an animation designer and supervisor. He was the CG designer for 9, the movie director for the first 2 main Kingdom Hearts games, and Final Fantasy XIII. And he also co-directed Final Fantasy VII Advent Children. Now, the developers said that this film was considered a part of their replan for 15 when coming from Versus 13, because of how large the gameplay experience was and couldn't fit in something like the invasion of Insomnia. I'm not sure if this was before or after the 15 reveal, since it contained footage of Noctis in Insomnia as gameplay footage, but as we'll soon see, there had to be some major changes to where it goes beyond just being the missing prologue that would happen before the player steps into the open world of the game. So let's go and step into the movie. And immediately, we get a sequence that literally can replace the Ifrit boss tease from the start of the game. Listen.
Lucis, a peaceful kingdom of great magic kept safe by the power of the crystal. And Niflheim, a military empire of vast machinery made strong by the might of its magitech. Long has war raged between the two. As the years passed, Niflheim marched on nearby nations, driven by its unsurpassed technology.
This narration alone, fitted with the visuals shown, perfectly summarizes the main conflict facing the world. There's one crystal left, guarded by the Lucian family, that Niflheim wants for themselves to add to their overall power. It would also explain why they slowly invade other countries, such as Tenebrae, where incidentally is where King Regis and young Noctis are after being attacked by a Monolith during the events of Brotherhood. You might not need to know that right away, since from this scene alone, you can assume that the king is good friends with the Queen of Tenebrae, and you do learn later what Luna does with Noctis during their stay. And while I mentioned or alluded to this already, but the movie does show why Ravus hates Regis once the Empire attacks.
Ravus! Mother! Doctors! Please, help us! King Regis!
Throughout the game, Ravus called Regis and Noctis cowards for abandoning him and his family in their time of need, since Lucius was shown to be withdrawing from areas the Empire would take control of just to protect themselves and the crystal. It would be what warped him into hating the Lucian bloodline and take it upon himself to use the power of kings to control their fate. Of course, in this case, Regis had no choice since it was to protect Noctis and Luna, given they were both important, but Luna chose to go back for her brother's sake. Thus, Tenebrae would become part of Niflheim and be in its grasp. Now, had this sequence been in the game, it would have allowed an opportunity to provide some intrigue to what changed over the years, why Lucius would try to form a peace treaty with the Empire, and why having Noctis marry Luna be part of the deal. You would have a good foundation to build upon, and depending on where they went, it could have been more serviceable in the long run. Except that only would have worked had they gone the route of the initial 15 reveal trailer, as well as used some leftover elements from Versus 13, because what follows is more or less the story of something irrelevant. The Kingsglaive!
All units move to secure the wall. If they break through, we're done.
The Kingsglaive of the title are the kingdom's elite soldiers who share the powers of King Regis, bestowed upon them, which allow them the same sort of abilities as him and Noctis to an extent. Of course, this means Regis is weakened for having to spread his power out to everyone, but still, having this many people with the same advantage and their own personal skills would be handy against the demons, as well as the forces of Tenebrae, unfortunately. As one group prepares to summon a large fiery tornado of death, we get to see our main character of the movie save a couple of glaives from a behemoth.
Nix, I owe you one.
You and everyone else.
Damn! Why couldn't we do that in the main game? If it's easy to slice their neck like that, then Ignis should have no problem doing it with his lightning blades. So this is Nix Ulrich, voiced by Aaron Paul, one of 3 notable actors to be featured in this movie apparently. Nix is essentially one of the kingdom's better glaives because of his skill and because of his loyalty to his friends and allies, hence why he gets called hero a lot, such as when he goes out of his way to save his buddy Libertas, voiced by Liam Mulvey. This happens just as the casters finished making their fiery tornado.
All glaives fall back. Repeat, all glaives fall back.
You should have made the call sooner! So, was the plan to sweep out the battlefield and not let your friends get away sooner? Why did it fade just now? Things are getting better though, as the Empire brings in the super weapon that Versdale was making. Diamond Weapon. Looks about like it did in FF7, don't you agree? And oh hey, there's Cerberus! Was wondering why we didn't see one until the Royal Edition. Due to how incredibly powerful the demons are, they're forced to retreat. Libertas gets his legs stuck under some debris, causing Nix to ignore orders and save his ass. Now see, I like how he's able to fight. That's something I expect from Noctis and friends. So why isn't he one of their bro buddies?
Luce, report.
The Imperial forces look to be withdrawing, sir.
Seriously, why does it keep fading like that? It's hardly worth using as a scene transition since it doesn't look like enough time passed to warrant it. And it's still in the same location. And they do it again, and again, and again. What is going on with the editing? Anyway, Captain Drados berates Nix for disobeying orders.
For hearth and home, right, sir? As long as I got strength in my body, I obey that order.
Don't fool yourself, Nix Ulrich. Whatever strength you have is on loan from the king. You are nothing without him.
Same applies to you, asshole! Besides, I bet he wasn't the one who ordered your mages to bring a tornado out of thin air and get your own troops caught up. So they return to Insomnia, which is still way too modern looking to be believable in a fantasy setting, where Drados tells Regis about what happened. What's interesting is that for the movie, some characters, like Drados for instance, have different voice actors. Case in point, Regis is voiced by Sean Bean, while in the game, he was voiced by Jim Puri, who you might recognize as Nathanos Blightcaller in World of Warcraft. Well, okay, maybe I would recognize him that way. Yet Arden is still voiced by Darren DePaul. I'm guessing since some characters aren't featured that much in the main game, they could afford to have more star power in the film. but for characters like Luna or Idalas, it seems a bit jarring that they don't match in terms of voice. So Arden trolls his way into the palace and announces that they wish to put an end to the war by having them forfeit all territories, save Insomnia of course, by having Prince Noctis marry Princess Lunafreya. Seeing this, you would think this movie would still try to feature Noctis and have him take part in a few scenes, which would then give him more of a reason to go through with the wedding. But then you remember they took away Noctis from the invasion to dump him into the open world, meaning outside of the wedding incentive, this would be one of the only ways you would learn beforehand the situation between countries. Instead, the one who gets the most attention is Nyx, who otherwise should only serve to complement Noctis's character development by being an inspiration to keep on fighting. I'll go more on that later, because otherwise, while Nyx is decent enough of a character in terms of his backstory...
You see, we don't need any of you immigrants jumping around, playing war hero.
I just don't think the I gotta prove I'm more than an immigrant to the king angle will mesh well with the Destiny of the Chosen King storyline. Hell, if anything, the dynamic that these particular glaives are all foreigners who get treated poorly could have benefited from being a standalone story, mostly separate from what will matter in the main game. We could have learned how the Kingsglaive got formed, seen some of their operations, and, if they really wanted to lead into the invasion of Insomnia, have the story end at a certain point in the movie and finish the story of Nyx in the game's actual prologue. But that's still a way off. Right now, aside from learning some of their individual personalities, they learn that the king might consider the truce with Niflheim, which the council argues partially in favor and partially against.
Paths left to us are few. The new wall draws its power from the throne. I am able to sustain it for some years yet, if the kingdom requires it. But the Chancellor spoke one truth, if only one. We are old, and the old wall... I cannot command the old wall with a weakened hand, nor do I have the strength to muster an offensive to turn the tide on this war.
Then let the choice be made, Your Majesty. What are we to protect?
And another thing, this movie does more to develop Regis as a character than in the main game, since we barely saw the father and son dynamic in there. Less so here too. But we do at least see what makes him the kind of ruler he is. He knows he can't hold out much longer, but he still wishes to protect his people, which is why he's willing to take this risk. But at what cost? Of course, this doesn't gel well with Nyx and friends, since they've been fighting to save their lands for so long, but now that Regis is relinquishing their lands, it was all for nothing.
Crow!
Sir!
Prepare to deploy. You're being sent to infiltrate Tenebrae.
Tenebrae, sir?
Mission details are classified. Report to my office for briefing in 30 minutes.
Oh, and I hope you liked Crow as a character, because her time has come. Nyx gets reassigned to be a castle guard, while Libertas shows his disgust in all this.
People! And you're just gonna go along with this and abandon them?
If we don't go along with them, the Empire will unleash all hell on Insomnia.
And we'll unleash it right back at him!
Easy, he's not the enemy.
Don't you get it? We're nothing to them. Rats. Snuck in from beyond the wall. Sure, they had a use for us. When they realized we could work their magic. So they handpicked us out from all the other rats out there and just let us nibble away at His Royal Majesty's precious power. But as soon as this war's all over, it's back to the sewers for all of us. That means you too, hero.
Did I mention I'm not a villain?
So it turns out Regis ordered Crow to go on this mission to Tenebrae to give Luna a hairpin, when in truth, we learn she is to escort her out of there safely.
Watch your back out there.
I know you're sick of hearing it, but you like a little...
Little sister to you. Yeah, I am sick of hearing it.
Just make sure you come back in one piece, alright?
says the guy in 2 pieces.
She would then be found just outside the city where she is shot and left for dead. I'm not joking either. That's exactly what happens. And not once did she consider getting away from the mystery van coming toward her, not even for a chase sequence. Besides, I'm not even sure why they needed to do this anyway. Luna was gonna head to Lucius to tell Regis about this dream she had, which is likely one of the visions that foretold the future. Just not right away now, since Ravis tells her not to leave until the right time.
What is truly going on here? What cause does the Empire have to see me wed to Noctis?
They have offered a peace. And your marriage is the olive branch.
You expect me to believe that?
By the way, Luna in this movie is voiced by Lena Headey, who you might know as Cersei in Game of Thrones. Just another big star to add to the front cover, I suppose. Even though clearly Niflheim is responsible for their mother's death, Ravis still has to blame Regis somehow. Now, another thing to add to Nyx's complexity is the fact that he does have some remorse for having his home taken, which was where his sister was at the time. Instead of being like Libertas, though, he still seems to have faith in Regis and hatred toward the Empire. Is this really the sign of someone whose faith isn't so easily shattered? Or is he on the breaking point as well? Anyway, the Emperor arrives, along with Arden, and they brought Luna along for the ceremony as well. Nyx learns from Drados, who is having him come along to pick her up, that the mission was to take Luna elsewhere for the wedding, meaning that they already had Noctis dropped off at Regis, presumably to enact on the second major scene of the game.
You happy giving up your home?
That's the king's decision. I owe him for taking me in. I was lucky. There are people in Galad who weren't. And they need me.
So he really is determined to help the king if it means helping people out. He probably talks tough now, but how long will that last you once even your friend loses it? So Nyx brings Luna to Regis, where he tells her about where Noctis is and why he's doing this, and offers to escort her out for safety. But she declines because she wishes to protect Noctis as much as possible. All while Nyx stands around and listens. This much would be fine to leave an impression on him, and to maybe pass on to Noctis, if he were still around, because even if they were hiding something from Noct, seeing this scene meant we were the first to know. It could have been referenced in the game later, while still allowing him to meet with Luna via the Stella meeting in the trailers. Anyway, Crow's body was found, and when brought back...
Wait.
Good God, she's been infected with demon blight! Maybe? So let me get this straight. They introduced some character as a major player, gave her the same treatment as other notable movie characters and all that, only for her to be killed off without her doing anything of worth, other than be motivation for her adoptive brother. That is seriously messed up. So of course, after getting her backstory dumped onto us, Libertas quits the Kingsglaive since he wants justice for her and that the kingdom is responsible for her death, leaving Nyx to wonder about what he should do. That night, at the party before the signing, Regis meets Idolas about the kind of welcome they have, while Nyx gets to meet with Luna in what's obviously a remake of the Noctis and Stella meeting from Versus 13.
Afraid it's gonna have to wait, Your Highness. I'm on guard duty.
Then surely there's no safer place for me to be. May I ask your name?
Nyx Ulrich.
Well, it's more of a loose reference, since she only gets acquainted with him while also getting the hairpin she was meant to have. It's still strange that this was how he would get closer to her personally, instead of being a witness and learning about fate through Noctis. But whatever, Lerbitus ends up meeting with someone from a resistance group, filled with those who can't stand the decisions of Regis. What does this have to do with the main game? Absolutely nothing! This was something that gets converted into something else meant for the multiplayer mode. We do not get a mention of any resistance group during the main game. Ever! It's all about the glaives, and they sure as hell don't look like any. I should also make mention of the main antagonist of this movie, General Glocka. He was the one who killed Ravis's mother and led the attack on Tenebrae. Unless you remember what I said in the initial game review, then I'll keep his true identity hidden for now, since at this time he plans to take Luna somewhere in the morning. On the day of the signing, Nyx notices that the watch Crow had was still ticking, but doesn't realize that the watch was actually a homing beacon with some coordinates in relation to Luna being taken by the Empire. Realizing where she's being taken, Nyx asks someone for assistance while also trying to get a hold of Drados, who seems to not be answering his calls. It seems he caught on that the Empire is planning an attack on the city as they have fleets of ships in hiding. He warns Regis about it and that they have Luna.
Claris, post guards outside the treaty room.
It will be seen as a lack of faith in the peace.
Which we all harbor. See it done. We may well have to take Emperor Aldercapt into custody.
Detain him? That would go beyond a new declaration of war.
We are still at war, Claris. And you, Nyx Ulrich. How soon can the Kingsglaive deploy?
On your word. At once.
Go then. Save Luna.
Well, that certainly worked out alright. Where was the doubt in the king again? So the mission is to save Luna and destroy the fleet before it gets to the city. As Regis gets ready for the treaty signing, the Glaives find the ships and begin their operation. As we're about to see, something major is going to happen, and if things had been different, it could have been the climax for the movie, while the rest carried out in the main game from Noctis's perspective. Despite having another traumatic moment, Nyx gets aboard but starts seeing that something is off. The ships aren't made for war, and it feels a bit too easy. Idolus is starting to act like Regis knows already what he's doing, and that Regis has taken action himself. Had we had more of Regis in the movie, or in pretty much anything, I'd be more invested in this developing situation because now it looks like the big climax is about to begin and starts with the death of a glaive.
Unit 1, secure the perimeter. Unit 2, stand your ground.
Held up!
One Tenebrae princess safe and sound.
No, not Pelna! He was... even less important than Crow? So aside from some glaives turning traitor on us, Luna was actually bait to lure the Kingsglaive away from the city. For once, the Emperor was actually competent in his role as a villain. This was also a ploy to get the crystal. First, by destroying the barrier that surrounds the city.
The crystal will not serve you.
Nor you. Once I take it from this accursed city. It's not the crystal I'm here for.
Oh hey, I forgot Ravis was in this movie. Well, as Nyx wards off the traitors, one dying loyal glaive uses the last of his magic to destroy one of the ships, so we can have an intense moment of Luna and Nyx nearly falling off the ship. There's still the giant octopus to deal with. Oh, my mistake. It's just Ultros from Final Fantasy VI. Not sure why they felt the need to have this thing aboard, but whatever, it's fan service. While he deals with that, Regis and his remaining group deal with the troopers before facing off against General Glocka. Man, wouldn't it be something if Noctis saw this on a video screen that his father was being attacked and rushed to try and save him? Oh well. After Luch springs a ship for them to escape with, only to be knocked off, Luna and Nyx get aboard and they begin their escape. Regis prepares to team up with Gladios' father.
This time it is not your fight. If you wish to leave, go now.
And abandon my king? I think not. Besides, our magic is bound to you. If you fall, Lucis falls.
Then let us once more into the fray, old friend.
Wow! That was like 1 second of teamwork before getting slaughtered! Also, Nyx totally blows up that building after killing Ultros. Wonder how many innocent people were in there. Oh, and never mind. That one guy is still alive. And he's dead. Aren't you glad you got to know more about Gladios' father? It's like this movie really expanded upon him, like, at the moment he died, he was like a real friend? Well, Arden and the Emperor got the crystal and bid farewell to the movie, because they only have a couple more scenes and they're really minor.
The reckoning is at hand. Dawn of a new age.
Oh no, not that guy who was with the Resistance. Glocka cuts the ring finger of Regis so Ravis can pick it up. Remember how at the beginning he showed his hate for Lucius after being abandoned? And that he wanted to change destiny? Well, here's the follow-up with him putting on the ring!
Hear me, Lucian kings of old, for I am Ravis Nox Fleuret, and none is more worthy of your power than I. No. Why? Why do you refuse me?
And that's the last we see of him in the movie. You know, if this was meant to be a film you could see without needing to play the game to understand the whole story, then Ravis would be among those who was built up to be important, only to be cast aside rather quickly, without so much as accomplishing anything. And even if you did play the game, this was still a rather weak way of introducing the character as both a fallen hero and a major antagonist. Luna helps Regis get away while Nyx does his best to fight Glocka, only to lose. So they retreat toward a secret passageway where Regis reveals that he knew all along that this was going to happen. Nyx questions why he did this.
It's the only way to draw their wrath from Noctis.
Is that the way of our king? Sacrifice Lucian's sons to save his own?
To save the world.
See Luna safely to Altissia. This is not an order from a king to his glaive. This is a plea from one man to another. Please, Nyx Ulrich, keep her safe. I know your mother would wish the same as me. That you and Noctis live happily. All those years captive because I failed you. Not again. Locked doors will seal your fate no longer.
The man who would sacrifice himself to save the future. Even if you don't care for him that much because he lets countries die or something. Seriously, this would mean so much more if we knew you better. Especially when you're supposed to be Noctis' father, and that was an aspect the creators wanted to promote. Instead, we just get more footage for the brief in-game cutscenes. Well, anyway, as they drive away, Nyx learns that Libertas was responsible for some of the commotion in the streets, which we see him talking to that one guy who was very deluded because he really thought the Empire was gonna give back their lands, while giving Libertas a way to contact the rest of the Resistance. More Traitor Glaives show up to try and stop the two from escaping, And it's here that Nyx learns he no longer has magic due to Regis being dead. That one gate guard from the beginning plays hero to let them escape, because he liked Nyx despite being an immigrant or something. Admittingly, the sequence looks cool, but the investment is still not whole with me. Luna tells Nyx about what the ring can do and why it's important to the Empire. As they get attacked by more demons, which was caused by the hairpin being a tracking beacon the whole time, Luna tells him a bit more about Ravis while he talks about his sister.
She was killed when the Empire came. I couldn't save her. I was as helpless then as I am now. I couldn't show her the future she wanted.
True power is not something that is found by those who seek it. It is something that comes to those who deserve it. Your sister wanted you to see a future as well. Anyone would wish the same for family they love.
After another sequence, Nyx gets into contact with Stratos, who tells him to meet him somewhere. The same place that apparently Glocka knows about, and...
If Ulrich or the princess get in the way, take them out. Reclaim our hearth and home.
Hearth and home?
What? That's the line the others would say. What does it mean? Well, one thing is certain, is that Luch is a traitor!
Can't believe you're still moving with that hollow point in you. All Crow could do was scream when one tore her insides apart.
Why'd you do it?
Because the Kingsglaive is nothing. An old man's battle fodder, sent to die in Insomnia's war, while our homes are bound and shackled.
Niflheim took your home. Took all our homes! Nothing will ever change that.
You never were too smart. You could have had a new future with the Empire.
Well, yeah. Regis may have left their homes taken, but it doesn't change the fact that the Empire is crazy loco with all the demons they have, so why the hell would you settle for letting everyone die? He demands the ring from Luna just as Stratos shows up, and Luna answers his question about the ring, which grants power. And the predictable happens. So, Libertus then crashes his car into Stratos because of the obvious fact that he is actually General Glocka. I guess his armor is magic and he can don it at will.
Surrender the ring.
Plan on giving those kings a piece of your mind, princess? You got a destiny to take care of here, remember? Besides, didn't anyone tell you? I'm the hero around here.
This would hold so much more water if Noctis and friends were here to see you become a badass because your loyalties to the kingdom are so much that it would make sense for the following scene to occur.
If you come lusting for our power, you must first stand in our judgment.
How long will you do nothing whilst Insomnia burns? Old or new or whatever it is, summon your wall!
You do not command us. Yours is not even royal blood. It does not fall to us to guard your city. Man is a fool creature, clinging to his past and cowering from his future, wasting his strength on bygone days.
Yet you don't seem to mind Noctis wielding your power for the first time. So despite it looking like he isn't worthy, Nyx convinces them to let him use the power of the ring to protect the future and all that. He has till the end of the night, of course, so he gets his power up and briefly stops Glocka, which buys enough time to allow him to talk to his friends.
Meet Lunafreya Nox Fleuret, our princess' beloved bride-to-be. And she has the future of the world in her hands. Keep her safe. Get her out of Insomnia. Oh, I almost forgot. You'll need this.
So you don't need the ring to keep the contract of having the ring's power? At least this explains why she still has it at the start of the game, but still. Libertus will take Luna out of the city before heading to Galad to meet up with the Resistance. But otherwise, it's time for the final battle between Nyx and Glocka.
So, the power of the Lucii returns. No matter, you are out of time.
For you, I'll make some.
Also, Diamond Weapon reappears because it didn't do much the whole movie and it needed something to do. But hey, at least it could be part of this riveting action sequence. Oh man, can you imagine if this was Noctis fighting Glocka? Or maybe Arden, in what's essentially the final boss fight? Seriously, this whole sequence is way more awesome than the final battle in the main game. I wouldn't even care if it had QTEs. At least half this fight would be freaking cool. So of course, Glocka did it for his homeland. Meaning it doesn't matter who he sides with, so long as he thinks his home will be saved, and he gets to kill the guy who took it away from him. And after a long battle, the ring starts to take its toll on Nyx, but at least Libertas can do something with one of the daggers he got from him. And with that, we get our last bit of the fight, which is dramatic and full of slow-mo, and it looks like Glocka won, only for this to happen.
Looks like I'm gonna owe him big. King Regis did what he did for the future. Because of him, there's still hope for our homes.
Hope.
So I guess this means Glocka will not be showing up ever again, despite the cutscene showing him in the main game, and never explaining to the player why Noctis doesn't avenge his father through him? Well, Luna says goodbye to Libertas, who plans to wait for Nyx despite him about to die. And despite this city still being occupied by the Empire later, it ends on a triumphant moment. So, this was certainly a mess of a film. Never mind the fact they had this weird obsession with using fade-outs despite there not being enough of a change in scene to warrant it. I mean, outside of some of the editing decisions, it looked pretty good. But the story is by far disconnected from what it wants to do. They said they wanted to make it like a standalone film so you wouldn't need to play the game. Except you absolutely would to know more about Noctis, who only ever shows up at the very beginning of the movie and the very end after the credits play. You would also know more about the strange troll who speaks poetically and doesn't do much but linger, or even learn about the destiny characters like Luna have. Not to mention, delve further into Ravis's character since he pretty much gets dropped hard in terms of development. He's only really around for like 3 major scenes of the movie, and doesn't do anything but lose his arm. Then, in the way of characters brought on in this movie, like Nyx, while their actions help get some of the plot going, most of them are never referenced in the game anyway. Unless you've played Comrades, you would never find out about what came of Libertas, and you certainly don't see the results of that expansion until the Royal Edition, in which he would still not be in the main game. But worse still, Nyx does not interact with Noctis or Arden to where it would explain why he got to hang in the throne room as a corpse. Unless Arden has some kind of power of foresight, he would never know about who Nyx is to even think of using him to discourage Noctis when he isn't even important to him. Hell, he's not even in the prologue web novel that was apparently made to show what several characters were doing during all this, and at most, Drados got to interact with Noctis and not Nyx. Which leads into my biggest gripe of the movie, the fact they left a lot of the responsibilities to Nyx without so much as letting Noctis be there to possibly be affected by the results of being betrayed by one of their own, needing a reason to get revenge on the Empire for his father's death, and then some. Nyx was pretty much a surrogate for Noctis, so players can get into the open world game and not deal with the heavy plot. At most, this movie should have ended during the rescue of Luna on the Hidden Fleet with the reveal that several glaives have turned traitor, have Nyx learn that Drados was Glocka at that time, and then have a battle with Luch before needing to return to the city. The movie should have been about how the glaives were founded, get into some drama with certain members but in better depth, have some elements from the party be present but follow through with having Noctis be there. That also means the game should have started with the party and have Noctis be there for the invasion, while loosely bringing up Nyx as a loyal soldier he knows who sacrifices himself for the kingdom and inspires Noctis to follow in suit. Something along those lines might have had more impact than focusing on someone who will not matter in the main game, over those like Regis and Luna. Because if anything else, from having even supposedly important characters get offed off for developing others, to having the story feel very nonsensical, this truly felt like a result of the change in direction. This was not a movie you could see separate. You still need to see it to understand the main game, and even then it's still not enough. Without seeing the other two Final Fantasy films, I don't know if it really is worse or better than them, but man, this was just a tough watch. Maybe fans will have better enjoyment or make better sense of it than me, but this still left me empty without a care for many of the seemingly important figures that make up this universe. And we're still not done. Keep in mind, we still have to do the multiplayer expansion, one that actually continues Libertas' story in a way. So check back for the final video in this 4-part review when we take a look at Comrades.
Been some while. Do you remember the last time you saw Lady Lunafreya?
About 12 years ago?
That would make you 8? You were kids.
Hope she hasn't gotten her hopes up.
Why not? Calm yourself.
Try and keep it together when you meet her.
She'll expect to see a fine young prince.
Tell me something I don't know.
We don't have time for all that. But this is your wedding we're talking about, no?
You that too. You really gotta calm down.
Uh-oh.
What do you mean, uh-oh?
I think I know.
SpaceMonkeyMafiaStudios.com.
What is that?